Hi, welcome to part three of Care of Bells and Belfries. And in this one, we're going to look at ringing rooms and tower access. And in my experience, tower access is very important because if the tower access is poor, then the chance of people actually going and maintaining the bells gets significantly reduced. So we're going to go on now as if we were doing some kind of inspection activity. And this picture here, some may recognise, a very nice reordering project took place, and the ringers went upstairs, as is the wont these days. And you may not be able to make out, but this is about, in old money, it's about a foot or so with a barrier on the top. And if I had young toddlers I wanted to park while I was ringing, I wouldn't really be terribly happy at letting them roam on that seat. And this brings into focus a problem that we quite often have these days, which is the church goes in for some reordering and the bell ringers are either not engaged early enough or not engaged at all or not engaged properly. And we end up with situations where we have to end up with some kind of unhappy remedial action, moving ropes or trying to get the floor moved forward at the last minute or whatever it happens to be. And one of the bits of advice I would make is get involved as soon as you can. And if even if you haven't got any doubts, either through me or directly, make contact with the diocesan bell advisor who sees all these plans and can make sure that the ringer's voice is represented. And then hopefully we can make things that are safe and comfortable for the ringers, because architects and people like they just have no clue how much you need to stand and ropes and all the rest of it. This bottom picture here, this is the intro into the fire extinguisher conversation. I went here to do an inspection and I said, well, I think you should have a fire extinguisher, mainly because it was on my checklist. And the person leading me around said that they'd been advised not to by the fire brigade. Now, I do know fire brigades always have a policy that they don't want amateurs messing around with fire extinguishers. They want them to get out. So nowadays they do tend to say don't have fire extinguishers. But in this particular case, you're exiting down these stairs into the kitchen. Now, if there's likely to be a minor fire, it's likely to be down there in the kitchen. Now, if I've got to go down there and join the fire, I would rather have a fire extinguisher than not, was my particular view, whatever the fire brigade man's recommendation. The other thing you can do instead is you can have a fire blanket, because if you're of that mind, you can use a fire blanket as a shield. So even if you're not confident in putting the fire out with the fire blanket, you can hold it in front of the fire while everybody scuttles past. And you should be able to do that for quite long enough to evacuate your ringing room. So what do we do when we go there? Well, here's a couple of pictures. This is an interesting example of things that are not great practice. So this is a tower with a chancel ring, and anybody can go and ring whenever they like with that spider arrangement. They are aware of this and have been having convoluted plans to have an electric spider for quite a long while. But an easy thing to do is to make sure that your spider is inaccessible to the general public. And if you don't have a locking ring room, then a key box and a conduit to I can't climb past here height is a jolly good substitute. But this is quite dangerous with open churches and people who might come in and just start messing around with bells and have no notion of what they're doing. This is the next thing I generally do. Once we've located the spider, made sure that works and lowered the ropes, give the ropes a good slapping and see if any of these bosses are loose, and sometimes look up and see if these bosses are loose, because by and large people aren't terribly happy when they fall out and come down the rope, and the screws do loosen from time to time, or these frames do loosen from time to time. So that's well worthwhile putting on your checklist. And this is just an interesting picture of things people do. This is one of a tower. I'm sure somebody recognizes it, but these things here are the balancers for the clock rewinding mechanism. And so somebody stands with their back to them when they're ringing. Now, I'm fortunate that I don't have hair, but if I did, I'd really be quite nervous at those going up and down behind my back. And I think I'd be much happier if they were shielded in some way or another.